Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Ghostbusters 2 for the Nintendo Game Boy, brought to us by Activision. This version, though, was developed by HAL Laboratories, and is similar to the new Ghostbusters 2 that was released on the NES, but only in Europe and Japan, not seeing release in North America. Instead, we had the Activision published title for the NES, Ghostbusters 2, which left a bit to be desired. Since Activision had the publishing rights to the Ghostbusters license in North America, they got together with HAL in order to bring this one to the Nintendo Game Boy. In the game, you pick 2 of the 4 Ghostbusters to play as. For this one, I'm going to play as Winston and Egon throughout most of it. You can actually change your Ghostbusters out because the other Ghostbusters just hang out in the levels, giving you potential items. So you do end up being able to play as all of them if that's something you want to do, though they all play exactly the same. Your goal in the game is to clear out the floors of all of the ghosts. You can see the counter in the lower right corner. One of the Ghostbusters uses his proton pack in order to stun the ghost or blast the ghost, while the other one traps them. They each have their own separate life count, and unfortunately, they do end up getting hit quite a bit, potentially. The AI is not very good in the game, so you have to constantly kind of guide it and babysit it to make sure that it's with you, and that it doesn't accidentally run into enemies on its own. You start to get used to it after a little bit of time, like how you can maneuver on the D-pad in order to get your character in a nice position so that the AI can get to where it needs to be in order to throw out the trap. These slime enemies can be a bit annoying because when they jump in the air, they're invulnerable to your proton beam. As we worked our way all the way around this part of the room, then we're going to head inside here. Stay on the fringe for the beginning to let some of the ghosts come to us and take care of a few. Like I said, it can be very tricky with the AI to actually trap the ghost. Even if you hit them with the proton beam, actually getting them into the trap is a whole nother story. Even with this game's flaws, though, I still much rather play this than Ghostbusters 2 on the regular NES, the one from Activision there. Other than the Statue of Liberty level in particular, there really isn't a whole lot positive I can say about that title. I just remember nightmares of trying to play through it and finish it up for a video. You have a few different ghost types, and a few new ones are introduced as we make it farther in, so it keeps ramping up the difficulty just a little bit. The running ghost is a consistent theme, as well as the Slimers that pop out of various walls and other locations throughout the course of the game as well. These giant bedsheet ghosts are pretty easy, even though they take up a decent amount of space. Thankfully, they're relatively slow and one of the easier ghosts to catch. As we make it back, sometimes you'll have to do some backtracking because once you've taken out ghosts in one room, or you've taken them all out in one area, you'll go to another area and that's where they've spawned there. Also, there are some times where they're kind of hidden in rooms, where they're in a wall or just kind of like invisible and you have to get near them in order for them to show up. It can be a pain sometimes just locating some of the ghosts. After we clear the 3rd floor, we're moving on to the first boss battle of the game, the Scoleri Brothers. Thankfully, during the boss encounters, your partner, the Trapper, has invulnerability. They have a barrier on them the entire time, so it's just you focusing on the boss in order to deal with them. It's kind of weird that they can just have a force field and not get hurt, but I'm not going to complain too much about that. At least it makes the game beatable. Without it, it'd probably be a lot harder, especially against the Vigo fight at the end. For this fight, we're mostly just moving around and watching out for their projectiles. Throughout the battle, different things will fall down from the sky, allowing you to either get a barrier for a bit of time, a weapon that can allow your partner to also be firing out with you. There's also lives that you can pick up, so there's a good amount of stuff to kind of keep you afloat during the course of fights. Once you hit the boss enough though, we're moving on to level number 2. The second area of the game is the sewer. I'm going to start off going into this main chamber area of this room and take out all of the ghosts that we come to. Some slimes, slimers, and some running guys. Once you've cleared it out, then go and sweep around the border, taking care of any of the ghosts that end up popping out as you do so. By the time you've done a few of the ghosts out here, the rest of the ghosts that you need are going to be in the center area again, so you can go back in there once you've made a loop around, and then clean up the rest of the ghosts. A relatively simple way to start off the level. Now each of the areas we go to, the 3 areas, they increase the amount of floors that you have to clear. We started with 3 for the first area, then there's 4 here in the sewer, and 6 in the museum. Once we've gone inside the area and cleared out them, go one more time around the border just to get the rest of them, and we can move on to the next floor. This floor introduces some new enemies. The one ghost isn't too bad. The other one though, the white one-eyed Cyclops ghost, those are a little bit more of a pain. And that's because of the tornado that they end up doing. And it's not that the tornado is that difficult to dodge. The AI partner will probably get hit some of the time if you're too close. But it's the fact that it lasts a pretty good amount of time, and you'll have to just kind of wait it out. And sometimes it takes forever for it to stop spinning so you can catch it. And the same goes for another enemy we deal with later on in the game that also spins. So a combination of both of these types of enemies, you can get pretty annoyed. Lastly, the third new enemy is the kind of weird clown on the ball enemy. They appear and then kind of charge forward towards you. You gotta make sure that you hit them quickly, or that you're far enough away that when they charge that you don't end up getting run into. They like to sneak up on you and just appear out of nowhere pretty much when you're walking around. Those are the kind of enemies that can be difficult to track down and actually find, so you'll find yourself not being able to find 1 or 2 ghosts at the end of a level sometimes and be just pulling your hair out. Where is it? Thankfully, after you play enough, though, you kind of learn, like, secret spots of where they're pretty much going to be each time. They always are going to spawn in certain locations, so once you've kind of figured out those locations, especially the ones off in the nooks and crannies, it's not too bad. We work our way around here. We got one last of these clown on the ball enemies, and once that's taken care of, we're moving on to the next floor. As we begin the next level, we're going to head on down, and a couple of slimers are going to pop on out. It can be difficult sometimes to get them when they're right there in order to trap them, but kind of be consistent. As long as they're sticking out just a little bit, you should be able to get the trap on them. Sometimes it's difficult or you won't be able to, so you gotta like bait them out just a little bit so you can actually hit them. They don't give you a lot of room to work with, and while you're perfectly able to do so, the AI isn't really that great at maneuvering in tight spaces. After clearing out that corner, we head back down here. We're going to have a couple of Cyclops ghosts right away, then a few just regular slime ghosts that aren't too bad to deal with. Head up into the room up here and deal with a couple of these Slimers coming out of the river of slime, I assume. Unfortunately, we have to kind of just wait it out a moment while that one spins. There's 2 more Slimers to take out in this corner, so I'll get those going while the one spins its little heart out. Once he finally stops spinning though, we can capture it and move on to the next level. The fourth and final floor here for the sewer theme stages, and we have 34 ghosts to catch. Gonna start off immediately catching a Cyclops ghost, followed by a couple of Slimers. Go to the right side here and head on down. You can catch a couple of the Slimer enemies as well as the Sheet ghosts. Like I said, sometimes it can be difficult to actually get them to get off the wall or off the slime or whatever it is in order to actually grab them. Head up here and capture a bunch of ghosts in a more open area. There's a couple of the Cyclops ghosts. Once you've cleared it out, go back down and start working your way backwards. Here we have to deal with this one more Cyclops ghost right this second. Capture that one, and now we can continue backwards. Basically, we cleared out this whole area, and now we're going to head back to kind of the left side and start working our way down into the left corner area. Pretty straightforward little area with the ghosts that we're going to be dealing with. I always find it cool when there are multiple versions of a game that come out around the same time and they end up being pretty different from one another. The new Ghostbusters 2 on the NES and Ghostbusters 2 here on the Game Boy, while very similar in gameplay, are different as far as the level layout, design, there's music differences, and a few other things between them, so it's really like two separate games. If I had to pick one of the other to play, it's probably going to be the one on the NES. I think is a little bit more enjoyable, but still, this one's pretty fun. If you're looking for a Ghostbusters game and never have played this one before, I recommend at least giving it a look. For our second boss, we have to take on this ghost train. After hitting it a bunch and firing a few projectiles at us, it'll split apart into a bunch of skulls and start moving around the room. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about our partner being hurt, but we have to dodge in between all of the skulls. After a little bit, they'll reform into the train, in which case it'll then go off screen, blasting projectiles everywhere. Just make sure you get in between some of these shots, and then be prepared to start battling the train as much as you can as soon as it reappears from one of the tunnels. After a few moments, it'll once again split up into a bunch of skulls and repeat the same process that we just did over and over again until the boss is done. This one does take a little bit of time though, just because a lot of it you're just waiting around for it to reform so you can actually deliver attacks to it. Thankfully, there are those item drops, such as the extra lives and the barriers occasionally, so there are things to help you stay afloat just like in the previous fight. Thankfully, I would have been hit, but the skulls decided to retract to reform the train right at that moment, so I was lucky there. It'll take a while, but finally we're able to hit it enough and move on to the third and final area of the game. Sadly, we don't get to control the Statue of Liberty, but we do get a little cutscene with it there. The museum, though, is 6 floors long, so it's pretty much the length of the other 2 levels combined, 1 floor less. These levels, a lot of them have the ghosts kind of hidden in nooks and crannies, like that one right there behind that desk and such. So you kind of got to look in every corner and every area of the rooms to make sure that there isn't a ghost hanging out there and ready to spawn. Also, I'm sure my paths through the levels, as far as going back and forth and the like, isn't necessarily the speediest way to probably do this, but it's pretty much been the most consistent way of getting things done as far as my paths are concerned. After defeating the enemies in one room, we had to do some backtracking, and there was another one of those clowns right there. And head back up here, some more Slimers to deal with. Plenty of enemies. Thankfully, the clowns in between the desks aren't too bad to deal with. Or tables, whatever we're kind of dealing with here. Three more ghosts left to go. One's down here in this corner. And then we're going to have 2 back in the room. We've done this room several times now, but there was 2 more that needed to show up, and now they're done, and we're moving on to floor 2. As we begin, I'm going to go on down and take care of the slime, deal with this clown on the left side, and then wait patiently for the tornado enemy to stop spinning. This is the new tornado enemy that's more annoying than the Cyclops one. Doesn't do anything more really than the Cyclops ghost, but just the spinning in general just takes so long. And also, if you have a crowded room with one of them and a few ghosts, it can be difficult to move around and actually dodge things because of how much space they take up. While there wasn't much change between the Japanese and North American versions here of this Game Boy Ghostbusters 2, the biggest differences are there is no sound test in the North American version, there was one in the Japanese one, and then the other one is there was actually a button press combination you could put in to go right to the ending and see the ending right away. Here we have to work our way around the table while dealing with a few ghosts. Kind of just a cool little setup for that room. Gonna go around this side here, go up. We can see another one of those spinning tornado enemies. Just gotta wait a moment for them to stop. Sometimes I'll just leave and come back, and it feels like if you leave and come back, though, it takes even longer. Or at least sometimes it feels that way. Thankfully, you can keep hitting a ghost with the proton beam over and over again and stun them multiple times. So if you're trying to get a few stunned or just trying to get a setup going, you can do that. After doing the right side, we're now going to go up the left side, doing the same thing we just did. Interestingly, there was actually 2 versions of the game released in North America. The first was just a black box with the No Ghost logo holding the number 2 sign up, and then the other one was the blue box that I showed at the beginning of the video. The game's identical, but it was released with 2 separate packages. That's something that happened a bunch in the old days especially, and it's something I always find interesting. As we begin the next floor, we're going to head into this room and take care of some slimes bouncing around. Head down this hallway, dealing with a couple of ghosts before entering into this room down here. Clear it out of the ghosts before continuing on. And then we're going to do the same thing in the next room. Once we've cleared out this side, we're going to now head all the way down and to the right and enter into this big room and start clearing this one out. Getting around this table with your trapper can be difficult. They really don't like going around tables sometimes. Just by exiting that little bit, you can see that I got some more enemies to spawn, so it made sense instead of going all the way through, just get them to respawn so I didn't have to travel back in here right away. The flying new enemy introduced isn't too bad, they just kind of fly and they can go off screen, but then they come right back from the other side. Just hit them with a single proton beam zap and you're able to easily capture them. I much prefer them to any of the tornado enemies. Just 5 more ghosts to go now. Head back through this room now that we've cleared it mostly out. Try to get our trapper to go with us. Head back into this room. You can see there's a couple of the clowns have spawned. Since that happened, we can now go back in here. And there we get that ghost. And this one in the corner. Now just one last one to go grab. In reality, I probably should have grabbed this one before I went back into that room, but it's in the left side of one of these areas, these hallways. If it wasn't there, it's probably got to be here, and there it is. And we're moving on to the next floor. Halfway through the museum levels, start off immediately by grabbing the Cyclops ghost. There's only 20 ghosts that you need to grab during this floor. Pretty simple as far as design and such, but they do bombard you with quite a few of the Cyclops and Slimer stuff. So you'll have enemies kind of coming at you pretty quickly, but diligence and enough open space, it's not too bad to be able to maneuver the trapper around in order to grab up all these ghosts. Once you've cleared out the whole outside of the area, then head on inside. To do so, you have to switch off your Ghostbuster to one of them, and you'll have a pickaxe, and then the pickaxe can destroy the wall. Destroy whatever spot on the wall you want, then go in and start sweeping up the ghosts. Once we've captured the last ghost, we're moving on to the next level. Don't worry, I'll switch my Ghostbuster back as soon as I get the chance to. Floor number 5 begins, and we don't have too many of the ghosts to go after, only 26 this time, a little bit more than the last floor. Here I'm going to switch back off to Winston and Egon as my team. One of the other things you can get in this game is this weapon here that instantly vaporizes the ghosts and just sprays them. And they are, like, immediately taken care of. You don't have to trap them. It doesn't last super long. It only lasts for a little bit of time. But it can be useful in certain places. While playing through this one, I was thinking about which was my favorite Ghostbusters game, as I play most versions at this point. There's just a few more that I still need to do for videos. But I really do think the Ghostbusters on Genesis is probably my favorite overall, with New Ghostbusters 2 on the NES being probably my second favorite. What of, if any, of the classic Ghostbuster games are your favorite? Just waiting patiently for the ghost to stop spinning so I'll be able to grab them. Trying to grab the other ghost in the room while I can. Since there's a bunch of the spinning ones, we just gotta pretty much wait it out. Like I said, sometimes they just take forever to stop. Once we gather them up, we can just clean up whatever left up in that room is, and then head out and back down here. And start heading our way back towards the beginning, and over to the right side here, and go into this room. Here we have our final 3 ghosts. And there we go, cleared out the floor, and moving on to the 6th and final floor of the museum before we take on the final boss. There's 34 ghosts to pick up in this level, but by now you've seen everything that the game is going to be able to throw at you. So you should be pretty good at being able to get the AI to do what you need it to in order to trap the various ghosts. Just take your time room by room exploring it and make sure that you gather up all of the ghosts, or as many of them as you can on your first times through without having to do some backtracking. Just makes it easier for you. Here in this room, I'm going to go around the big desk, clearing out the ones on the side, and then go in the middle and clear out the ones in there. Sometimes it can be really difficult in these spaces to actually get these. The AI also doesn't like to go around desk very easily. After clearing out this room, we're going to head into the room on the left side here and below us. Going to make sure that we get all the enemies done first, though. In here, you have a handful of the clown enemies on the balls, so just be ready for them to come at you. That one I approached from the south to make sure that the Trapper would be in a good spot. Sometimes just your approach is a key to being able to actually trap it or not. Just one ghost left to go. Unfortunately, it was one I must have missed from before, so I gotta do a bit of backtracking to get to it. Down here in this corner. And once it's grabbed, we're moving on to the final boss of the game. For the first part of this fight, you'll have to take on the assistant of Vigo, Giannis, first. He'll fly all around the room, shooting out a little bit of projectiles. Just kind of keep focusing on him, dodging the projectiles, getting in between the few spread shots that he does as he flies back and forth at the top of the screen. As long as you have a little bit of distance between you and him, you should be able to dodge out of the way. Thankfully, your partner, of course, has the barrier. Once this fight is done, though, get ready for the fight against Vigo. This fight's a lot tougher, though, because Vigo has a lot of projectiles he fires out. Not very threatening, though. Very small Vigo is what you end up battling here, but, you know, barely any bigger than us. But, we're going to blast him from all sides as we dodge back and forth around the projectiles. When he gets to the top of the screen, you can get in between with the spread shot-like projectiles that he ends up doing. If you have your partner with a weapon, or if you get the barrier, get to the front of the area with that partner or with your barrier and just blast him as quick as you can. That way you can at least do some pretty good damage real fast. If you have your barrier, don't stay up there too long though, because it won't take long before it disappears and you end up getting hit. Just keep doing your best to dodge and fire. And once you deliver the final hit, you can sit back and enjoy the ending of Ghostbusters 2 on the Game Boy. So there you have it, Ghostbusters 2 for the Game Boy. Not quite as good as its NES counterpart, but still a pretty fun little Ghostbusters game that I just don't hear mentioned very often. With that though, it will wrap up this episode of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.